in our last lesson, we talked about John Wesley Powell.
Yes.
Who was he?
He was an explorer.
He was an explorer. He was. And when he was on his expedition to the Great Unknown, which we know now is the Grand Canyon, but why did he call it the Great Unknown?
No one been there.
Nobody'd been there before, that's right. So while he was on his expedition, he kept very detailed notes in his journal. We looked at one of his journal entries the other day.
Yep.
All right, so he kept really, really detailed notes of his observations and of questions so that later on he could go back and read what he had written and look at what he had done so that he could make sense of his observations and what he had seen to make sure that he answered all his questions and that he could communicate what he found with other people. So we've kind of started making a record of our observations and our questions so that we can make sense of the information that we have. So in our last lesson, you had made a notice and a wonder chart. You had written down things you noticed and things that you wondered about when we looked at those pictures. Okay, so I want you to go back and look at what you've written down. And I want you to find one question that is really interesting to you and that you think is really important to answer the question, what can we discover in an unknown canyon? I'm going to pause and give you just a minute to find one question. Okay, I had asked you to find one question from your notice and wonder chart that was interesting to you and that you think would help us answer the question, what can we discover in an unknown canyon? I want you to write that question down on the sticky note that I just gave you. Write down one question that you think might help us find the answer to what we can discover in an unknown canyon. All right, so you have your question written down on your sticky note. I'm going to come around and get them, and then we're going to put them on our chart over here. We're trying to answer the big question, how did the Grand Canyon's features form? But we have some more, there's going to be some smaller little subtopics or focus questions that we may have to answer before we can get to our big essential question. Some of those questions are going to be, what do the Earth's rock layers reveal? Remember, we saw all those stripes and layers in the rocks. How are those rock layers uncovered? How do canyons around the world form? And how do humans interact with Earth's features and processes? So as we look at your questions, we're going to put those onto the chart. Some of the questions that we have are, how tall is the canyon? What were those dots that were in the rock layers that we saw? What makes the place red and orange? So that was the colors that we saw in the rock layers. How did the rocks get there? That there is a big waterfall, and there's big rocks in the water, and we think that it might have been formed by the water. Okay. What rocks are in the water? How deep is the canyon? How did they get in? How did the Grand Canyon's features form? That's the big question that we're trying to answer. How tall is the canyon? That kind of goes with the question, how deep? The rocks in the water. And is it hot there? All right, so we're going to look at some of those questions as we go on. All right, so now we're going to develop a model of the Grand Canyon. You're going to make a model in your logbook. So before we do that, let's think a little bit about some of the things that we saw in the canyon. Okay, so to think back, in John Wesley Powell's journals, he didn't just write, he also drew pictures. He drew sketches and diagrams and models. Now, this isn't something that requires artistic skill. We're not talking about the big painting that we looked at, the Chasm of the Colorado. We're not talking about something, let me go back to that, here you can see it. We're not talking about, keep going. We're not talking about something like this. This isn't something that John Wesley Powell would have included in his journal. What he included in his journal was just some quick sketches that showed the details so that he could go back, remember the things that he was trying to accomplish in his journal. So he drew sketches to show what he had seen. So it's not something that's going to take a lot of artistic ability. It's just noticing the details and including them in the picture. So let's think about the key features or some important parts that we might want to make sure are included in our model. Let's go back, we're going to take just a few seconds to look at the pictures again. It's so that you can remember what they looked like. Okay? I want you to check these out. Those were the 5 present-day images or current images of the Grand Canyon that we looked at. So based on what you've seen, I want you, without saying anything, I want you to just think of the things that we should include in our model. What are some things that you should make sure is included? Braylee, what's something you think should be included? Okay, different shades. Why would we need some different shades?
Make it look like it's an apple.
Yeah.
Not just a big tray.
Okay. So we need some different shading in there. Okay. Jacob?
A lot of rocks.
There were a lot of rocks. Okay. Owen?
Maybe different color rocks.
Okay. Did we see different colors in the model, in the pictures? Yeah.
And brown rocks.
Ansley?
Rocky texture.
Rocky textures. Okay. What else? Katie?
Brown rocks.
There were brown rocks. What else besides rocks were there? There was a lot of other things besides rocks.
There was water.
There was water. Where was the water?
At the creek.
Okay. There was water at the bottom running through the bottom of the canyon. The Colorado River runs through the bottom. So I think that we're definitely going to need that river at the bottom. Hold on. We're going to need those walls, those rock walls with the different layers. There were different colored rocks. How about the sizes of the rocks?
Big, little, tiny.
Yeah, there was all kinds of different sizes, right? Those are going to vary. All right, so I want you to think about all those things that we've talked about. Think about what you've seen. in the pictures, and I want you to, in your logbook, on page number 5, lesson 2, you're going to draw a model of what you see or what you think about the Grand Canyon. Okay? Just a few minutes. I'm going to set a 5-minute timer for you to draw this. If you want to use your colored pencils, you may. You do not have to. Remember, this is not a big artistic drawing. This is just a sketch of a model. So 5 minutes. Okay, you might not be completely finished, and that's okay. But let's kind of talk about, and we'll make a model together. Let's talk about what it should look like. Okay? So remember that we talked about how detailed Powell made his, how detailed he made his journal entries and his sketches. So we need to make sure that we include a title so that we know what we're looking at. What could we title our sketch? Grand Canyon. What about anything more specific about the Grand Canyon?
The beauties of the Grand Canyon.
Beauties of the Grand Canyon. How about
Sketches.
what were we trying to include in our sketch? The features and the details. Yeah. So let's title it Features of the Canyon, or of the Grand Canyon. Make sure you have a title. Alright, now, does yours have to look exactly like the model that I'm making up here? No, but if you notice a feature that we put on our class model that you don't have in yours, and you think, oh, I should have put that, it's okay now for you to go back and add that as we're working. At the top. You can write it up above if you need to, up above that box. Alright, so is the canyon really short or really tall?
Tall.
It's really tall. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start up at the top. Now, did you notice in the pictures, was it like just a straight line?
No.
No, it kind of had some varying height. So I'm just going to kind of do this here. Yes. All right. So underneath that top layer, what did you notice? What did you notice? What should I have there? What were the walls like?
Red and orange and yellow.
They were striped, weren't they? They were different colors. So I'm going to make a little layer here. And I'm just going to kind of put some quick dots here to just kind of show that. Then I heard somebody say there were some red stripes. So let's make a layer of red. I'm just going to make some lines going this way to show that they were different. Because in the photographs, it wasn't all the same, was it? No, not at all. What other colors were there?
Orange.
There was some orange, okay. Let's make an orange layer. I'm going to make straps going this way. Okay. Then there was some yellow. I'll strap it this way. Alright, what was at the bottom?
The river.
The river. Okay, so I'm going to use blue for
There's also
the river. This is what, and there was also what, Amy?
a waterfall.
there was a waterfall. So I'm going to come over here and I'll kind of make my waterfall here. I might even include some arrows to show the direction that the water was moving. And came down the waterfall.
I kind of thought of a hair leg whenever I saw the
You did. And then it came down from the waterfall and then it flows through the canyon. So I'll include those arrows just to kind of help make that, help us see that. Okay? Alright. Then, what else did we see besides just the walls? We've got the walls and the stripes, the layers. We've got the water, the river at the bottom, and the waterfall. Let's go. We'll go ahead and label those. Okay, let's go ahead and label these. These were the striped walls. We're looking at a model of the canyon. Okay, we have the river down here. We have the waterfall. Okay. What else was there? What else was there in the canyon? What about just the things that are actually a part of the canyon? What were some things? Sand. Okay, where was there some sand, Cash?
At the bottom.
At the bottom by the riverbank. So I'm just going to kind of add it over here at the bottom. Well, that's not really a feature of the canyon. That's part of the environment. That's part of the environment, but that's not features of the canyon. Alright, so we've got the sand down here at the bottom. Okay. What else was there, Amy?
A cave.
There was a cave. We did see a cave, and it even talked about in the part that we read of his journal, it talked about them staying in a cave, didn't it? So let's draw the cave down here by the river. Just some rocks and a hole. I'll make it dark to show that it goes back there. Alright, so this is a cave. That's fine. Alright, so we have our cave and kind of draw some more rocks around them. I told you this isn't really an artistic sketch, and I'm certainly not an artist, so you can see that.
I'm an artist, but not
Alright, so what else was there? We've got a cave. What else, Brayley?
bushes.
Okay, there were some bushes. That was part of the things that grow, part of the habitat around there. What else, Caden?
Huge rocks.
There were some huge rocks. Where were those huge rocks?
They're all down the river and stuff.
There's some in the river, so we'll draw some big old rocks to go in the river. And there you saw that made the river flow really fast around those rocks, didn't it? Is the river the only place that there were rocks?
No. Rocks. Rocks.
There were some rocks that were falling in one of the pictures, wasn't there? Didn't we see
It
a...
looks like there was an avalanche.
Yeah, it looks like a landslide where all these little tiny rocks were falling.
They're sticks.
So I'm going to...
They're sticks.
They weren't sticks, they were rocks.
There could be sticks in the rock pile. I thought the sticks was laying around. There could be boulders.
So I'm going to label that falling rocks.
It looks it looks like you're mapping out a Grand Canyon museum exhibit. It does.
Right. What are those big rocks called? I just heard somebody say it. What were they, Dylan?
Boulders.
Boulders. I'm going to label these big ones down here boulders.
Yes, it really does smell like.
Okay. I'm going to kind of color those in to show that they're...
This is really creative.
Okay. Anything else you can think of that we should include?
There are like some weird dots on the rock.
There were some weird dots on the rocks. We've kind of got some dots up there. Okay? Yes.
This is really creative.
Well, thank you. What else was there? In one of the pictures, there was some black kind of at the top. What did we say that was?
Nighttime.
What was it from? It was something that flowed. What was it?
A volcano.
What comes? Wasn't smoke. What comes out of a volcano? Lava. Yeah, so at the top, there's some black rock that is lava.
I didn't see a volcano.
Hardened lava. There's not a volcano there, but there was some black rock that was some lava.
I found dry lava in my garden before.
All right, anybody else? Anybody see anything else that we need to add to our model?
Nope.
Yes, ma'am. Well, there are hikers there. That's part of the environment now. People like to explore. But remember, all we're doing right now is thinking about the features of the earth that's actually the canyon. Yes.
supposed to do anything?
Not right now.
Okay. So
Yes, Braylee. Do what? I'm sorry? Long rocks. There are some long rocks. There's all kinds of different sized rocks and shaped rocks.
There was a volcano.
Okay.
Yeah, we said that.
All right, so I think we've made a pretty good initial or starting model of the canyon.
Look at Mom.
All right, so we've talked about this word. What's this word right here?
Features.
Features. What are features?
They're like different things that describe it.
Okay, yeah, features are the unique and the important parts of the canyon. So those rock layers, do you think that those are important?
Yes.
Yeah. Do you think that the river at the bottom is important to the canyon?
Yes.
Yeah, all those things that we included in our model or our sketch that we did are important features or important parts that make up the Grand Canyon.
The Grand Canyon.
Okay, so we've already talked about that. So let's go back and I want you to think for just a minute without saying anything. Based on what we know right now, how did the Grand Canyon's features form? Based on what we've looked at, the pictures we've seen, our model that we drew, do you have an idea of how the features might have formed?
Over time.
Braylee, what do you think?
Wildlife and water.
Wildlife and water. Caden?
Earthquake.
Earthquake. Keith?
Lava and water.
Okay, lava and water. Jacob?
Time.
Time. Owen?
Maybe something there would mix into the water and it would create rocks.
Maybe so. Okay, Christopher?
I don't know if that's okay if I say this, but can I say God?
Absolutely. That is absolutely okay that God created it that way. All right. Jaden?
Even the tiniest rocks, they were once probably huge rocks.
Probably so, and they broke into smaller pieces. All right, so we have some ideas about how the canyon's features formed. So I want you to continue thinking about that, and then we'll see if we can answer those a little bit more in lesson 3.